So quite a few of you actually sent me this report, and it's about the Ambassador Bridge. Now I think most of us know the controversy that comes with the Ambassador Bridge, but if you don't, let me just do a quick TLDR for you. So long story short, the Ambassador Bridge billionaire owner gets jealous of the Gordie Howe Bridge. Then he cries to the frequent visitor to Epstein Island, Howard Lutnick. And then Howard Lutnick then cries to his supreme overlord, who threatens to shut down the Gordie Howe Bridge. Did I summarize that properly? Let me know if I didn't. But what's happening now is that the Ambassador Bridge is no longer the most popular bridge in the area, and is actually now the Blue Water Bridge. It is great to hear that the Ambassador Bridge is being used less, but it does come with issues on the Canada side, and I'm going to talk about both of these in this report. Also, I have an interview from CNN, and they talked to the Niagara Falls mayor, and he explains the struggles that they're having without the Canadian tourists. So if you're from Ontario, I think you're going to like this report. Okay, let's get into the first report about the Ambassador Bridge losing its title for the most popular bridge.
After decades at the top, the Ambassador Bridge has been dethroned as North America's busiest truck crossing. The Blue Water Bridge has taken over the crown, signaling a major shift in cross-border trade. Fewer trucks are lumbering across the Ambassador Bridge, a route long known as a key trade lifeline. Many instead opting to cross at the Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia. According to new data from the Bridge and Tunnel Operators Association, the shift started in November of 2024. In 2025, the Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia saw the largest number of truck crossings, recording over 2.1 million crossings compared to the Ambassador Bridge with 1.9 million crossings. The trend remains the same so far in 2026, with 299,000 crossings at Blue Water Bridge compared to 286,000 crossings at the Ambassador Bridge.
Now keep in mind, this is just data for the commercial crossings. We don't know the data for leisure or just passenger crossing yet. But we can probably assume that passenger crossings are also down as well. But one thing to consider, that 286,000 that we're seeing under Ambassador Bridge, how much lower is that going to go when the Gordie Howe Bridge does eventually open up?
In a statement to CTV News, the Federal Bridge Corporation says the growth comes down to commercial carriers looking for faster, more efficient routes and a way to avoid heavier city traffic. Plus, the bridge's reliable infrastructure and competitive tolls make it an easy choice. Commercial trucks at the Ambassador Bridge have some of the highest tolls in the region, $27 per axle, almost 4 times the $7 per axle at the Blue Water Bridge. Once the Gordie Howe Bridge opens, tolls there are being set at $12 an axle.
Seriously, greedy billionaires, $27 versus $7 and $12. Now this is something I really don't experience on the West Coast, because when we cross into the border into Washington State, whether it's at the Peace Arch or Pac Highway, we don't have to pay any tolls. But if I was a commercial truck driver and I did have to go to the United States, and especially with everything going on right now, I would make an effort to actually go through the Blue Water Bridge. 1, because I can't stand that billionaire who owns the bridge, and 2, because it's $7 to go over the Blue Water Bridge. Now the next report I'm going to show you, it does show the downsides of everybody trying to go over the Blue Water Bridge, mainly due to a lot of backups. But let's just finish this report first. The opening date of the bridge has not been announced. As for passenger crossings, the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel holds the top spot with 3.7 million crossings in 2025, followed by the Ambassador Bridge at 3.5 million and the Blue Water Bridge at 1.6 million crossings. The Federal Bridge Corporation went on to state it welcomes the Gordie Howe Bridge as a vital addition to the regional infrastructure network. Well, I know who's not going to welcome it. It's this guy. And I would not be surprised at all if we're not finished hearing from this guy yet, and he tries another stunt to try to stop the Gordie Howe Bridge, or at least delay it. So overall, this is positive news when it comes to, avoiding the US bridge. But it does come with a downside. And before I get to that downside, it's time for today's GTL Community Photo. And today, it was sent to me by Jeff, who took this photo from Banff National Park. And he also sent me another photo of his ski trip. It makes me realize that we have such a variety of mountains in Canada. And for the locals here, if they do want to go skiing or snowboarding, they would actually have to travel to Japan. So to all my fellow Canadians back home, definitely take advantage of the ski hills that we have. And thanks Jeff for sending this over. Okay, let's move on to the next report. Actually, before I do, I just want to give everybody an update that my first video that I usually have for the day, or the morning on your side, I might have to push it back an hour. Because with the recent time change, it doesn't really give me much time to create the video and get it ready. So just a quick heads up for everybody, and don't worry, the videos will be out. But it might just be an hour later.
Who Blue Water Bridge border crossing at Point Edward is now the favored Canada-U.S. crossing for commercial truck traffic. Figures from the Bridge and Tunnel Association show more than 2.1 million trucks passed over the dual-span bridge in 2025. That compares with 1.8 million at the Ambassador Bridge. It appears the reason for the switch has little to do with changing patterns. It's about the money.
Well, a changing pattern could be the money as well, so I don't know what this reporter is talking about. But what I'm curious about is when the Gordie Howe Bridge does open up, how much farther will this pattern actually change?
Per axle fees set between 5 and 7 on the Blue Water Bridge are up to 4 times less than those charged in Windsor. Those cost savings were noted by hauling firms forced to travel the 402 during the 2022 blockades of the Ambassador Bridge.
We've heard it from trucking companies that how much they were saving every week. So they just kept that route going. And that's kind of how it started to build.
The mayor of nearby Sarnia agrees.
It's a commercial opportunity. That's why they're coming to the Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia Point Edward.
Both mayors contend that the buildup of trucks and trailers is good news for the economy. On the other hand, the news is less favorable for Sarnia and Point Edward residents. Frequent long backups of trucks along the 402 and attempts by a few drivers to cut through town to avoid them poses safety concerns.
Now, I definitely agree that this could be a safety concern for many of the local residents. Not only that, it's probably going to bog up the traffic as well. But when the Gordie Howe Bridge does eventually open up, I have a feeling that this traffic that they're getting in Sarnia might lessen a little bit. Because right now, some of the truckers are avoiding the Ambassador Bridge, and that's a 90-kilometer drive. But when the Gordie Howe Bridge opens up, which is only a few kilometers away from the Ambassador Bridge, I'm sure it's going to be used quite a bit. I'm talking about the Gordie Howe Bridge. I'm definitely learning my Canadian geography having this channel.
There's a lack of respect by some truckers towards the people that live in this community and the others who are in passenger vehicles trying to get to the U.S. And that's been an ongoing issue.
Bradley has long proposed that a staging area for trucks be created outside of Sarnia to ease congestion and improve safety. In the meantime, enforcement has helped.
If they're caught cutting the line or doing something improperly, when they get to the booth, they're turned back to the end of the line and given a ticket.
Both mayors don't expect truck traffic to slow unless fees in Windsor drop, including those proposed for the new Gordie Howe International Bridge.
I can't understand the disparity and when it's impacting them that way.
Sean Irvin, CTV News.
Well, this is just my uneducated, unexperienced guess. I think when the Gordie Howe Bridge opens, it'll probably alleviate some of the pressure that's on the Blue Water Bridge. But regardless, this report does show that there is a trend going on, and hopefully the Ambassador Bridge, I'm just going to say, I hope it fails, and I hope everybody avoids it. Because we just have to remember this guy, the billionaire owner, who tried to pull a stunt in keeping his competition closed. So yeah, I say screw this billionaire. Now, I want to move on to the next report that talks to the Niagara Falls mayor, and he shares the struggles that he's having without the Canadian visitors. So if you're in the area and you used to visit Niagara Falls, you might enjoy this one.
Niagara Falls, known as the honeymoon capital of the world, is at the center of the growing cross-border divide between the U.S. and Canada. The city has seen its iconic bridges grow quieter as Canadians increasingly avoid trips to the United States. Many of them describe a general animosity towards visiting America, citing safety concerns and President Trump's threats. Now, tourism operators describe fewer hotel bookings, thinner crowds, and less back-and-forth traffic between the two sides of the falls. The numbers back that up. Overall, trips to the U.S. by Canadian residents were down 25% in December year over year. Robert Restino is the mayor of Niagara Falls, New York, and he joins us now. I grew up just about a 45-minute drive from where you are. I remember as a child you could cross without a passport, practically with no ID. We'd go on either side of the falls. For people who haven't been there and didn't know what it was like before.
Now, like I said, I'm learning my geography on the spot because I just realized there's a Niagara Falls, Canada and Niagara Falls, United States. Just like there's two Sault Ste. Maries, one in Ontario and one in Michigan. But hey, at least I'm learning, right? But I wanted to pause here because she did mention before that she used to be able to cross the border without a passport or ID. I'm old enough to remember that on the West Coast because my friends and I used to go to Bellis Fair when we were in high school with just a driver's license. In grade 12, when we had a spare block, a bunch of us would just drive down to Bellis Fair, have lunch down there and go to the arcade, and then drive back. And I do remember back then that the CBP guards used to be a lot nicer. Oh, how times have changed, eh?
So tell us what it's like today. I'm sure it's something you could not foresee, and that it's changed the entire complexion of your economy.
Wait, what do you mean you couldn't foresee this? This was completely predictable during the Orange Guy's election campaign. You can kind of see how this report's going to go. There's another victim story.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Paula. It's been difficult to sort of recalibrate what we're doing here in Niagara Falls. One thing I can say, it's true that in terms of the country of Canada, we've had fewer visitors and guests here. But the one thing that stays consistent is those of us that live close to the border, Niagara Falls, Ontario, Niagara Falls, New York, some of that hasn't changed. An example of that is my wife and I were out this past week for dinner, went to a familiar restaurant of ours, and many of our Canadian friends were there. So in terms of close to the border, not so much difficulty, but truly as you examine, Canadian traffic as a whole, very much tariffs have impacted us. Especially impacting some of our smaller businesses, bakeries and print shops that relied on supplies and other items that would cross the border. That's impacted us greatly. So yeah, it's just been a difficult and a strange time for us.
Yeah, not just for you, but for the rest of the world as well. I mean, your president basically just said that he's going to obliterate a civilization. And yet the media says that they couldn't foresee this happening.
Strange time for sure. And Mayor, I ask you, what now? Because I think few people, either in Canada or the United States, could envision how long this has gone on. It is significant. So I'm kind of thinking that you need to really retool your economic strategy here.
Yeah, one of the things that we have done is we've worked at, and it kind of got, we sort of got a little bit of a training session in this with the pandemic. We are retooling a lot of our marketing efforts to more of a Great Lakes regional perspective. So going into the tourist seasons in an effort to sort of build up what we're losing in terms of cross-border traffic, that's where our focus really has turned.
So let me translate that whole word salad that you just said. He basically means that the Canadians are not coming back, we begged them, and now we're just hoping that the domestic tourists decide to come to Niagara Falls. In my opinion, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. It didn't have to be this way. Because we hear from every border state across the country. Washington State, Montana, Minnesota, New York, Maine, and the other ones I forget. We hear from all of them that we are their friends, and they are our friends. But what is a friend? And let me explain it on a personal level. A friend is someone that you can depend on, someone you can trust, someone that will be there for you in an emergency. Back in the early 2000s, I got into a really bad car accident, and my lower back is still killing because of it. Long story short, I was going through an intersection and a car was turning left, and it was a head-on collision. My car wasn't drivable and they took me to Surrey Memorial, which is actually very far from where I used to live. Obviously, I had no way to get home, so I called two friends. Friend number one, I called him and said, "Hey, I'm in trouble right now, and I need your help. I need a ride home." What was his response? "Will you pay for my gas? Because otherwise it's a little bit too far for me." And that conversation didn't last very long. Friend number two, I called him up and said the same thing. "Hey, I need your help. I'm in a bit of an emergency right now. I need a ride home." His response? "Which hospital and where and what's the address? I'll be there in 45 minutes. And that was it. I even offered to pay for dinner on the way home or, give him some money for gas, and he said no. To me, that is the definition of a friend. Someone who is willing to go out of their way to help you. Not number one. And how I see the United States right now is like friend number one. They will not help you unless they benefit in some way. And ironically, a couple months after the incident, friend number one calls me and says, "Hey, I need a few more sales to meet my quota for this month. Can you buy this?" And I said, "Hey, when I needed help and it was an actual emergency, where were you?" And he says, "Well, you got home eventually, right?" At that point there, I told him to fuck off and never call me again. And unfortunately, and this is just my opinion, every border state, every business, every tourism official is like friend number one. To relate it back to our country's friendship, I have to remind everybody how much Canada has done for the United States. What we did for them during 9/11, all the wildfires that we helped them with, all the hurricanes and natural disasters that they had, all the aid that we sent them, and also the Canadian caper that happened in 1979 when we helped get their people out of Iran. We did it because we were friends. We didn't ask anything for it. But when the tables are turned, and it's time for the United States to step up to defend Canada, where is everybody? Where is everyone? So yeah, if it sounds like I'm bitter about the friendship with the United States, I probably am. But at the same time as well, I'm just tired of it. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few people watching this video that agree with me on this. Well shit, this vent went on a little bit longer than I expected. I'm going to have to trim down the rest of this interview.
You know, the other problem with all of this too are some things that are really just part of the economy. You know, the disparity between the Canadian dollar and the U.S. dollar has made some of that travel that used to be commonplace a little more difficult or a little less reasonable for some of our Canadian friends.
See what I mean? This guy's like friend number one, so screw him.
But I'll say this about our opportunities as well. We've had some Canadian companies come over to the United States, to Niagara Falls, New York, to set up shop. And I think some of that also has to do, believe it or not, with the whole tariff situation. It's easier to move about if you have a U.S.-based company. And so we have had the benefit of some of that in manufacturing.
I believe it. And Canadian business owners have noted that obviously the Canadian loss is in some ways the U.S. gain. But for a town, a city like Niagara Falls, where it was normal to just kind of see the falls from one end, spend some money in Canada, see the falls from the other end, spend some money in the United States if you were Canadian or traveling from wherever. I mean, do you wish the president would tone it down a little bit? Would that help a little bit here? Because as you know, the animosity is real right now. Canadians really do not feel like even a 1-hour trip to your town is worth it at this point.
I would agree with you. You know, we have family, like many people who live along the river, we have family that are in Canada. And they've expressed to us the general distaste with the way in which our federal government has approached their country. And, you know, I have said over and over again, while there are ways in which you can have business and economic conversations with allies and friends, they don't have to become testy, and they don't have to become name calling, and they don't have to become those kinds of commentary that really don't lend itself to the great long-lasting relationship that we have had with our Canadian neighbors and guests.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the familial connections there. And you know, really, sometimes communities on either side of Niagara Falls, they're inseparable, right? My family included. Mayor Robert Rustino will continue to check in with you. Thanks for being here.
You know, they keep going back to the fact that there's a lot of people that have family across the border, and there's a lot of history between us. But history does change, and what has happened in the last 14 months has severely damaged the United States' relationship with many countries around the world. I mean, hell, we get people in our comments from Sweden, Australia, Singapore, Netherlands, Mexico, Brazil. Everyone's saying that they're done with your country. This is just my opinion, but I could really care less about the quote-unquote history that you guys keep referring back to. I have no loyalty to any state or city that I used to visit. My friends and family in the United States, I have loyalty to them, as well as any US citizen that is trying to fight their fascist regime. But to the US economy, US businesses, tourist attractions, all of that, I have no loyalty to that at all. Alright, that's all I got for today's video. I apologize if I got a little bit too ramped up on this one. And I don't know, I think I'm reaching that point right now where anytime I hear a US official or a mayor or somebody just talking about Canada or the international community as just a revenue stream, it just really ticks me off. But at the same time, I'm still pretty pissed about this tweet that their president did. And what pisses me off the most is nobody's doing a single thing about it. That a president of the United States can say something like this. And yet, these people are worried about their tourism revenue. So yeah, I said my piece, and it might have been a little bit edgy today. And I know it was because the co-host decided to leave the room. But if you didn't like it, you know, there's a dislike button, so you can go ahead and press it if you didn't like it. Alright, that's it. If you found any value in anything I said today, or you want to hear more from a Canadian and international perspective, without the US media bias, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. That way you'll be notified of my future videos. And if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that'll be showing up on your screen shortly. Thanks everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.